Well, one of the things it means to be German in the 21st century is to be hung up about history. Yeah. What it means I actually considered this when I was wondering how to get a German bank account while briefly on a research trip in Germany and getting fed up with not having a German bank account, and went into the usual banks and discovered you've probably all been through this if you've tried it, and discovered the simplest way is to have a German passport. And I thought, do I want a German passport? I could actually apply for one for various reasons of family ancestry and so on. And dig out sort of, my mother's background, that kind of thing. And I thought, no, because I don't want the burden of guilt. So I'm British and I don't have to worry about the public role of the historian, except insofar as in our next research assessment exercise, known as the REF, we have to have public impact, which is Wissenstransfer. And British historians are not used to doing this. So, what do I think about the public role of German historians or historians in Germany in question 1? Okay, so history is really important to Germans, and you can only turn on the television, read newspapers, and you are constantly seeing, as we established over our lattes before this, the British royal family, but you're also constantly seeing Hitler, the Holocaust, Das Amt. Works of heavy history are really interesting to the serious newspapers and to the unserious magazines and feuilletons and so on. Should historians have a public role, such as they do in Germany, or do some of them choose to have a public role, and if so, for what reasons, and do they enjoy it and actively seek it out, I ask myself. Much German history, academic history, and those of you who are doing German history will probably agree with this, is well nigh unreadable. The Habilitationsschrift of 853 pages of text and a further 400 pages of footnotes is not public history, I think we would agree, however interesting the topic is. But where historians do choose to have a public role, they are crucial, I think, to public history, and I think it's important. I mean, I trivialise slightly because I find German historians quite... I enjoy thinking about the differences between the historical profession in Germany and that in Britain or America, let me put it that way. But I think they are crucial. When you think of some of the really important things about German history, memorials, sites of memory, museums, exhibitions, it is absolutely essential that academic historians play a role in making sure that these are more than the representation of prejudice and myth and prevalent views of the past, that academic historians have a role in how Buchenwald is presented, in what the exhibition underneath the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe in Berlin looks like, what is conveyed, what message is conveyed. So I do think historians should have a public role if I'm getting in my moral position rather than my historian's position of, what role do they play. If I actually say what role do I think they should play, I think it is important that at least some historians choose to have a public role because I think they are vital. Human beings are historically conscious animals. We think historically, we reflect on our current state in terms of where we've come from, where we are, what moral values and political values and social values we're committed to in the present and the future. And if that is done in a way that is not informed by accurate research, serious empirical knowledge, then it is not a good thing, in my view. So I think the historian's role is that of selecting, highlighting, providing material for debate, providing the bases for serious discussion of alternative frameworks of interpretation without foreclosing any debate, because I don't think historians provide key answers. I think they provide the material with which people can think more clearly and they can help to analyse clearly, but they don't necessarily provide the answers to every question that is of importance. That's on the positive side. I asked myself also, can historians not have a public role? Yes, is the answer to that one. There is, I think, we have to protect an absolute right to pursue historical research in the ivory tower, independent of changing public interest. I don't think we should be worried about public impact. I don't think we should be worried about public relevance. And I think that public interest is often media-driven. It's driven by particular political interests. It's driven by particular economic interests even, tourist trade at the most crass. I mean, you go to Krakow and you can get these bus tours, EasyJet flights with a bus tour to the salt mines and the castle in Krakow and Auschwitz, you know, and it's just crass commercialism. So I think we have to understand that some historical research should not be driven by other interests. I mentioned what Martin has already picked up on. In my comments, I have the same observation. There is anniversary mania in Germany. Every time you reach a round year of anything, you have to have conferences about it, you have to have exhibitions about it, you have to have We're labouring under Dickens at the moment in Britain. I don't know whether you feel that you've heard more about Dickens than you really wanted, even if he is allegedly Britain's second greatest writer after Shakespeare. But you know, there is something about anniversaries that seems to get into people's scheduling of what's going to be interesting. I think historians have a duty to resist that. You know, I really will not organise a conference in a year that happens to be a round anniversary of something that's related to the conference. So I think one has to be a little bit wary of it. Are there areas of history which are not of potential public interest? I note that we've almost equated so far down the table public history with contemporary history, even post-contemporary and postmodern. Actually, no, I don't think so. I think there are all areas of history potentially could be of public interest, although historians of much earlier periods tend to evade asking about their role. But there is huge interest in Pompeii, for example, and you know, it doesn't take Robert Harris to write about it, though it does, to make people interested in going. I think all areas of history can potentially be of relevance to a later present and be of salience to the way people think about it. I have a theory about relevance of history which relates a bit to the comment about the survivors dying out and how will we remember. I actually think, and this relates to a research project I'm engaged in at the moment, so it's wandering off a little bit, but not perhaps very much. There is what I call communities of connection and communities of identification who are not communities of memory. I don't like the notion of memory when we're talking about collective memory, when it's beyond actual memory. But I think communities of connection are people who define themselves as in some way having a direct connection with a particular past. And I was quite interested with my research group on Wednesday. We had a workshop on this, and we were talking with another research group talking about legacies of slavery, and they were telling me that when they go around the country talking about descendants of, well, they talk about slave owners in the early 19th century, and suddenly somebody will pop up from the back of the audience and say, yeah, my great something grandfather was a slave owner, I feel terrible about it. You know, there are people who feel connected even to something a couple of hundred years ago, which is extraordinary. There are also what I call communities of identification, which relates a little bit to Landsberg's notion of prosthetic memory. I'm going to resist the temptation to get into truly academic and not public history mode here and start giving you a little lecture on things, but just very briefly, I think when you can see something with which you identify very strongly and you feel it has some moral and worldview interest, whatever period of history it comes from, you can feel a sense of connection with it, which is beyond the dull history that you read in order to pass your A-level exam and learn the dates and know what arguments to trot out. And in that sense, I think all history can, in principle, become public history, and it needs historians to ensure that it is appropriately informed and isn't just Robert Harris. Thank you.